Well, let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, folks. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, our agenda has been approved. Are there any public comments? Any members wishing to make public comments must state their name and address, and you're limited to 5 minutes and only to this matter at hand. Is there anybody that wants to make a public comment?
I'm gonna start.
Okay,
Amy Peckett's here.
okay, name and address, and you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Amy Peck, 109 Big Horse Drive. You all got my email, but I got done tennis early, so I decided to come. Prince Bright had asked, how did we get here? So we're here because the board did not accept the election committee's recommendation to hire Ace. In part because of Rick Farr's comments, Ace withdrew. MK Elections was the most expensive contract. It was not a recommendation of the committee. However, the motion states it is a recommendation and it doesn't state the cost or if it's a 1 or 3 year term. I'd like to make a point that last year's election was not flawless. Concerning is that Rick Farr's on the forum declaring that MK told him I voted twice. When Joe Reynolds suggested that perhaps Rick Farr misremembered this, citing last year, it was me who discovered a flaw in MK's system that sent a live voting link to homeowners who already voted. Mr. Farr insisted his memory was correct. Thus, Rick Farr's assertion that MK improperly disclosed information about a specific homeowner stance. The board should vote no on Farr's motion because Farr's claim on the forum that this contractor gave him, he used the word us, details about a specific owner or owner's voting activity is improper. The board must take decisive action to prevent further irregularities and safeguard the integrity of our election process. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Yes, name and address, and you're limited to 5 minutes only to the matter at hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Park, 16 Sailors Way. Just a point of order that because the board doesn't make a decision that's consistent with a recommendation from advisory committee is not an issue. An advisory committee is just that. It's advising the board for certain things based on the topic at hand. Additionally, it's not a decision-making entity. The board is. So anybody that is saying that the board is out of line by not approving the recommendation made by the committee is a little misleading.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Elaine?
Yes, and I don't know if I can make it as a board comment or do I have to give my address?
You could name and address. You're limited to 5 minutes at the matter at hand.
812 Yacht Club Drive, Elaine Brady. I guess I just want to address what I saw like on social media sites and kind of a little bit of misinformation or making something more than it really was. Is that, last year you did put out on social media that you voted twice. And so it was out there for folks to know. And in all fairness to both the election president and or Rick, if he reached out, is to verify that. Certainly you found when you contacted them, there was a small problem in their system. Whereas if somebody mailed the ballot, they were still getting notifications that they could vote online. That didn't mean that there was going to be a duplication because they did indeed have that there. A system to do that, and everything is based on lot numbers. So whether it was Rick who called or whether it was the president who called, they wanted to verify, was there really a problem with MK that needed to be resolved? And they were told because you put it out there. Evidently, whoever talked to them said, yes, she did call. We checked the lot number. There was no duplication. So that got fixed, but you're now trying to turn this into another fire when it's not. There's an easy explanation for what happened. And Rick had every reason, if it was him, to call because he was a great president and needed to know, was there indeed some issue we were not aware of? And it was true, it was a smaller issue that was confusing, granted, to some folks, that they knew that they had put something in the mail, but now they were being told that they could also vote, and it was an active line too, but they had in place that there would no be duplication. So
I made that very clear.
you
And
didn't,
I,
you did not.
This is not a
I-
conversation. Excuse me, this is not a conversation. This is just public comments. Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Seeing no more public comments, I'm going to close the floor to public comments and move on to new business. Rick?
Thank you, Stuart. I have a motion, press forward here, proposed motion. Having received and considered information and recommendations from the election committee, this motion is to select MK Election Services as the election vendor for the 2025 election, to authorize the election committee, working with legal counsel, to negotiate final terms of a written contract with MK Election Services, and to authorize the Ocean Pines General Manager and the Ocean Pines Vice President to execute the election vendor contract once finalized. Ocean Pines President Stuart Lackenick is up for re-election and therefore will not be executing the election vendor contract. Ace Printing and Mailing withdrew the proposal on April 28th, 2025. As far as the purpose and effect, per resolution C08, the election committee administered the voting process for the elections of members of the board of directors under section 5.03 of the OPA bylaws, and the election committee supervises the printing of ballots, the mailing of the election materials to members eligible to vote, and the procedures for safeguarding and tabulating return ballots. Under Board Resolution M06, the association may employ an independent contractor to serve as election vendor, with the contract to be approved as the scope and services provided by the election committee and executed by the Ocean Pines General Manager or Ocean Pines appropriate Ocean Pines officer, and the vendor to be supervised by the election committee. Under section 807 and 9.05 of the bylaws, the hiring of the election vendor must be approved by the board, and the contract with the vendor must be executed by the Ocean Pines president or vice president and attested by the Ocean Pines secretary. Background. Based on the foregoing, the election committee was previously tasked and developed and published an RFP, request for proposal, for the selection of an election vendor for the 2025 election cycle. The RFP was published on March 5th, and it was forwarded to 5 national election service providers and the 1 local printing company, provided them with the opportunity to officially bid on the Ocean Pines Board of Directors 2025 hybrid election. The deadline for submission was March 21st, 2025. Submissions were received by the election committee, and the next step is to select the vendor, negotiate, and execute a contract with a selected vendor.
Thank you, Rick. Do I have a motion? Do I have a
Second.
Do I have a second? Any discussion?
Has it been a second?
Wait a
Yes,
minute, did somebody second it?
I'm sorry.
Did you?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I heard someone say
I'm sorry.
second.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, discussion. Elaine?
I would just like to mention that I am disappointed that Ace was not willing to come back to us with answering some of the questions, because I think all of us would have been, everybody was kind of on the fence which way to go, but there were certain questions that we all had, I think, that were valid. And so I'm sorry that he did not, so that we couldn't really consider him. But, it is what it is, and this is where we're at.
Jeffrey?
Thank you, Stuart. Hey, I just want to go on record to say that my decision last Saturday, had nothing to do with any director's comments. My decision was based solely on significant unanswered questions that Elaine just alluded to. And I'll reiterate, if we had received answers to these basic questions, we may be at a very different inflection point at this time.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Hindsight's 2020, and I'm as guilty of that as anyone else. As I said at the board meeting, I used ACE printing 3 years ago. If I run again, I probably would use them again. I had no objection, frankly, even with whatever minor glitches existed last year with the work that MK did. I raised 2 questions at the board meeting. One dealing with, because of the difference in the prices that we were seeing, we would be, in my opinion, we would be well advised not to have a 3-year contract, but go back to a 1-year contract. And I had questions as to the election committee's recommendation relating to the Dropbox. Oddly enough, chairman of the committee didn't answer either one of those. I have no interest in rehashing everything that was discussed on social media, but I will make the point, because hindsight is 2020, that there are enough issues that were raised that now it's almost like you don't know really what to do. We're left with one choice, which is going to be approved today, and we can all hope that the election runs smoothly, and we have every reason to expect that it will. I think what we've also done is we've put John in a difficult position. I think in the future, if we're going to, even if we do another RFP next year, we should start it out sooner. So we're not caught sort of, trying to cram everything in just before the election cycle starts. And I also think that in all candor, the committee did not do the due diligence that they should have. The questions that the board raised were simple questions that should have been asked long before. And if there was an issue that says, well, no, I'm not going to give you that, they could have gone back to him and said, okay, either do it or you're going to be dropped out. And then you still have the issue of another vendor who came in between the 2 price marks between ACE and MK, who never got any consideration. On top of that, you had a chair who had, prior to the RFP, had said, we should give MK a 3-year contract. So his view was clearly known. He was compromised. We've made a mess of the whole thing. Committee, the board, we've made a mess of it. And we've compromised the trust that we want our people to have when they go vote. So we're gonna approve the resolution. I understand that. I'm going to abstain because I just think there's too many questions. We've made a hash of this. Going to pass, let it pass. But I think we've got to learn from this for next year. I really do.
Yes, Rick.
Yeah, just, Steve, I appreciate what you're saying. I personally don't think that there's a mess here. At all. It's brought to the attention that my name was brought up as the reason why ACE dropped out. That's absolutely not true. I asked specific questions about the vendor. Very simple question. One was, are they able to perform the hybrid that we asked them to perform? They could easily said yes or no. They said they were going to build a custom system specifically for Ocean Pines. And they can't even answer whether they had that or did not have that capability of doing so. So bringing to this board that I'm the sole reason that ACE dropped out is ridiculous. Hold on, let me just finish. And also too, this board, while I'm assuming that it's going to approve, and we'll see that by a specific vote, will ensure that there is integrity that's moving forward with this election process. And we'll do all of our due diligence as we can, follow the lead that is given through council, through the contract negotiations, whatever it may be, 1 year, what have you, 3 years, whatever it may be. But I don't believe, and I'm for factual, this is not a mess at all. And that's just my personal perspective and it's my hope that this whole election will run smooth.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick. Excuse me.
Good, John.
You have to be recognized, Steve. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Rick. I have no problem with the questions you raised, and I'm certainly not blaming you. In light of what Elaine said, look, Ace, Tom Golias, who owns Ace, runs Ace, he's over 21, made his own decision. That's fine. I have no issue with that.
Right.
I will make one point in response to what Doug said, and that is the Elections Committee is not strictly an advisory committee. They do provide advice on some issues, usually through their final report on each election. But they're also charged, unlike most other of our committees, in our governing documents to undertake certain tasks. So they're somewhat of a hybrid. And, 2 years ago, Doug, when you were president, I think, Rick, you were vice president, as I recall, we had to step in because we had gone 3 weeks into the season without any ballots being out. We had to restructure the calendar for the election. I mean, there was, we had to step in and do that, which we did correctly. I don't have a problem with that. All I'm saying is best case we can get out of this is a good election this year, and we learn our lessons so that we accelerate the calendar for next year. Because my view, and take social media for what it's worth, from what I've read on social media, it's gotten bollocksed up. We can disagree on that, but I'm not pointing fingers at anyone.
Right.
To me, we just got to learn from this.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any other public comments?
Stuart, actually, can I just make one comment in response to a couple of things?
Go ahead, Bruce.
So just responding to something Doug said and something Steve just said.
I don't think you could see it.
In certain respects, you're both right, in the sense that I agree with Steve's comment that the election committee is different than pure advisory committees, because they do have what I've referred to as executory functions under the bylaws and the governing documents. That's true. But what is also true is they have no power or authority or standing to, although clearly their recommendations are valuable, they have no power or authority or standing to actually go out and hire an election vendor. The only body that can do that at the price levels that we're talking about is the board. If the price level were $5,000, the general manager would have the authority to do that. So I think you're both right in the sense that Doug is correct that this committee doesn't have the authority to actually hire a vendor. You're correct in the sense that, however, that the election committee is different in kind than the other advisory committees. I just wanted to make points.
Thank you, Bruce. Yes, John.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I definitely agree with Elaine. I made the motion, and I certainly respect that my colleagues here had clarifying questions that they're certainly entitled to. I too was disappointed. I thought they weren't really difficult questions that we should have been answered of ACE, and we fully suspected that we would get those answers back. To Jeff's point, it didn't seem like they were that difficult. We should have had that answer, and we may have been making a different decision today. Just to follow up, Steve. So with the elections committee chairperson talking about MK and whether it was 1 year or 3 years, just to be clear, that was he was using the recommendations that the committee made last year. That was their recommendation to this board, was to continue using, and again, whether it's going to be 1 year or 3 years. But I just want to be clear, because it wasn't the election committee. He was not just saying that he liked MK and no one else was involved. That was a recommendation by that committee last year.
Thank you, John. Are there any other discussion items? Anybody? I just wanted to make one comment. I'm sorry?
I think Elaine, you had some. I'm sorry. Elaine.
I just wanted to make.
I can't see her.
Okay, Elaine.
Okay, go ahead, Elaine. I see you now.
I just wanted to make one comment. I don't know if this is the time and place, but it looks like we are going to go ahead and approve for this contract. I mean, it makes sense, but I really didn't look through the whole thing. Quite honestly, I was out of town. I just want to be ensured that in that contract, the box that is here at the admin or the police department is not sent out until the last day of voting. It can be at noon instead of late afternoon so that they make, FedEx or whatever the overnight. I think that that's reasonable. But there was an indication that I heard, and whether it was true or not, that the committee had maybe wanted, if it was going to be MK, to send that box several days or even up to a week later. And for me, is a stopper for having them do our election. We have too many people who rely on that right now. So
Thank you, Elaine.
is that in the contract? And if it's not, it needs to be in there.
Thank you, Elaine. Are there any other comments? I have a comment. Elaine took a little bit of my thunder. I'm mirroring Elaine's comment. I don't believe any of us on this board have an appetite to do away with that drop box at the police station earlier than the last day. If we want to call it at 12, then so we can hit the UPS box. That's fine. But I'm going to mirror Elaine's comments on that. And the other thing I wanted to say, Steve, I don't really believe that this process was a mess. We had some straightforward questions that we posed to Ace, and instead of answering them, he decided to put us on blast to the media instead of coming forth with those answers. Also, the price that was quoted did not include the referendum, and there was a refusal to give a dollar amount for how much the referendum for the firehouse was going to cost. So we really don't know what Ace's bottom line bid for this contract would have been. It was too much up in the air. There were too many questions. Does anybody have any other comments that they want to make? Any more discussion items? Okay, I'm going to close the floor to discussion. We're going to move all in favor of taking MK as our election vendor for the 2025 election season. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
How many is that? Because is that 4 hands up?
One,
It's
two,
me.
three.
1, 2, 3,
Five.
5. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions?
You got two
That's,
abstentions.
2 abstentions. Okay, motion carries. Moving forward, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All in favor? No opposed or abstentions on that, right?
None.
The meeting is adjourned.
Can
Thank
we
you, folks,
sign
for
this
taking
or-
this on. Thanks for getting this done. Bye.
We can. Oh, he's on it. I'm